See? That's you. Can you see? My name is Austin Cameron, and I'm the founder of Footsteps for Africa. I was a missionary in Zimbabwe and Zambia from 2002 to 2004, and while there saw a tremendous amount of suffering and need. Many people struggled to find food for that day and didn't own much more than what they were wearing. Equally as disheartening was seeing a lot of the donated food and other supplies being sold on the streets. A lot of it just didn't reach the people who needed it most. Well, I jumped right into school after my mission and fortunately was able to go to Namibia for a study abroad and for some master's thesis research. While there, I saw the exact same needs and struggles and suffering that I saw in Zimbabwe and Zambia. After I graduated, I was in a position to start Footsteps for Africa and chose to focus my efforts initially on Namibia, specifically on orphans and vulnerable children. In 2011, I collected and shipped nearly 3,500 articles of clothing and shoes to Namibia. I then went over and picked the goods up at the seaport in Swakopmund, drove them to the distribution points throughout the country, and we distributed them to 4 different schools and various other groups of underprivileged children. Near the end of the trip, I started to think about ways that I could expand and make a bigger impact, potentially do things that were sustainable. Well, the last school that I visited, the day before I left, was this wonderful woman who was caring for about 30 children in her home in a very impoverished area outside one of the cities. She cared for as many children as she could fit on the dirt floor of her corrugated iron shack. And she told me why she was doing it. She said the mothers in the community came to her, asked her to teach these children because she knew English and Afrikaans, but also because the mothers worked most of the day and they couldn't trust their husbands and their boyfriends to be alone with their children while they were away at work for fear that they would rape them or otherwise abuse them. She told me specifically about a few of the kids and some of the struggles they had. One of the stories was about this little girl who was 3 years old at the time. She told me about how this girl and her twin brother were raped by their father when they were only months old. And her brother didn't survive the abuse. She now has the HIV virus. She will never be able to have children, and she rarely talks to anybody because of the psychological damage.
The father is still now in the jail.
He's in the jail.
Their own father. It's why the people, they don't even trust their own fathers of the kids now.
It was after hearing these stories that I knew how I needed to expand my efforts. I needed to create safe havens for these kids to learn and play. So I calculated it out and I realized that I could build these simple structure schools and fence them so these children could play in relative safety for $2,500. So in May of 2013, we're going to distribute shoes and clothing and school supplies. We're going to build several simple structure schools, and we're going to establish a sustainable food program in one area where many of the children have one meal a day, and it's the meal that they eat at school. Just like before, I'm going to be there every step of the way. I'm going to go to the port and pick up the goods and drive them to the areas where we're going to distribute. We're going to build one of the schools, and I'm going to oversee the building of the other schools. We're going to establish this food program, and we're going to make sure that it's cared for properly while we're gone. If you'd like to know more about our next humanitarian effort, how you can help, or if you'd like to come on our next trip, visit footstepsforafrica.org.